Let me ask you something that nobody in your workplace is going to bring up at the Tuesday morning team meeting. What if the thing standing between you and a retirement that actually feels secure isn't a bigger salary, or a smarter investment strategy, or some complicated tax move you haven't figured out yet? What if it's just one more year of showing up? Not 5 years, not a decade, 1 year. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I mean really sitting with it. Not just running numbers on a spreadsheet, but actually turning the question over in my mind during the commute, during the quiet moments before the house wakes up, during the kind of Tuesday afternoons where you look up from your desk and wonder how much longer you're going to keep doing this. Because here's the thing. When people in their 50s start seriously thinking about retirement, and I mean seriously, not just daydreaming about it, they almost always frame it as a binary. Either I'm ready or I'm not. Either I have enough or I don't. Either I can leave or I have to stay. But that framing is costing people real money, real security, real options, and it's collapsing a genuinely complex question into a false choice. So today I want to walk through what one extra year of work actually buys you. Not in vague terms, not with fake inspiration, but with real numbers and real mechanisms. The kind that you can take to your own situation and actually use. Because the answer is more interesting than you think. And it's also more honest than what most financial content will tell you. Let's start with the most obvious one, which is also the most underestimated. When you work one more year, you're not just adding 1 year's worth of income to your life. You are, in most cases, adding 1 year of contributions to your retirement accounts on top of what you already have. And those contributions go in at your peak earning years, which means they're often the largest contributions you've ever made in your life. If you're 50 or older, the IRS allows you to make what are called catch-up contributions to your 401k. For 2024, the standard 401k contribution limit is $23,000. But if you're 50 or over, you can contribute an additional $7,500 on top of that, bringing your total to $30,500 in a single year. And if your employer matches any portion of that, which many do, typically somewhere between 3 and 6% of your salary, that's additional money landing in your account that you would have missed by leaving a year earlier. Now, $30,000 going into a tax-advantaged account at 54 or 55, with even a decade of growth ahead of it before you start withdrawing. That is not a small thing. At an average market return of 7% annually, which is the long-run inflation-adjusted average for a broadly diversified stock portfolio, $30,000 today becomes roughly $59,000 in 10 years. Without you doing anything, without you making a single additional decision. That's the math working for you instead of against you. And that's just from the contributions. Now let's talk about what happens on the other side of the equation. Because working 1 extra year doesn't just add to the pile. It also shortens the amount of time you need to draw from it. This is where people's intuitions tend to fail them, and I think it's because we imagine retirement savings as a bank account with a fixed balance. But it's not static, it's alive, it's compounding, and every year you don't touch it, it keeps growing. Here's a concrete way to think about it. Let's say you have $500,000 saved at 62. You're considering retiring now or working 1 more year. If you retire now, you might expect that money to last you through a 30-year retirement, so until you're 92. If you follow something like the 4% withdrawal rule, which would give you about $20,000 a year from that account, plus whatever Social Security you're receiving, plus any other income sources. But if you wait 1 year, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, $500,000 growing at 7% for 1 more year becomes $535,000. So you've added $35,000 to your starting balance just by waiting and not touching it. And second, your 30-year retirement is now a 29-year retirement, which means your annual safe withdrawal rate produces slightly more per year, because the math is stretched across fewer years. That's the compounding of both ends, growth on the front, reduction on the back. 1 year can shift your sustainable income by more than people expect. And we haven't even talked about Social Security yet, which is honestly where the most dramatic numbers live for a lot of people in their late 50s and early 60s. Social Security is, at its core, a delayed gratification machine. The longer you wait to claim, the higher your monthly benefit, up to age 70, after which there's no additional increase. If your full retirement age is 67, which it is for anyone born in 1960 or later, claiming at 62 means accepting a permanent reduction of up to 30% of your full benefit. Waiting until 70 means receiving an 8% increase per year for every year past your full retirement age. A permanent, inflation-adjusted increase, which gives you a benefit at 70 that's roughly 77% higher than what you'd get at 62. Now, most people cannot or do not wait until 70. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But the point is that every year you delay claiming between 62 and 70, you are permanently increasing your monthly income for the rest of your life. And that income is adjusted annually for inflation, which is a feature that almost no private investment can offer with the same reliability. So if working one more year, say from 64 to 65, allows you to delay claiming Social Security by 12 months, and your full monthly benefit at 67 would be $2,400, then at 65 you might be receiving something like $2,160 per month instead of the higher amount you'd get by waiting further. But every additional year of delay is adding roughly 6 2/3% to that benefit permanently, which over a 25-year retirement can translate to tens of thousands of extra dollars in cumulative income. These are not abstract percentages. These are real monthly payments that will show up in your bank account for the rest of your life. The decision about when to claim is one of the most consequential financial decisions you'll make in your 50s and 60s, and it is directly connected to how long you keep working. Let me take a breath here because I know this is a lot of numbers and I want to make sure we're not losing the thread of what this actually feels like on the ground. Because here's the part that spreadsheets don't capture. When you're sitting at your desk at 54 or 58 or 61, and you're tired in that specific way that comes from decades of showing up, not lazy tired, but deep tired, the idea of one more year can feel like a sentence rather than a strategy. I've felt that. I think a lot of us have. And I want to be honest about the fact that the decision to work one more year is not purely financial. There is a cost on the other side of this ledger too, and it's real. It's the Tuesday afternoon cost, it's the Sunday evening dread cost, it's the health cost if your job is stressful or physical, or simply no longer what you want to be doing with your most alert hours. So I'm not here to tell you that one more year is always the right answer. I'm here to help you understand what it actually buys you, so that if you do make that choice, you're making it with clear eyes. And if you choose not to, you're also making that choice with clear eyes, knowing exactly what you're trading and why. Because there are situations where leaving earlier makes sense. If your health is declining and it's affecting your quality of life significantly, the math on staying longer gets much harder to justify. If your job is causing the kind of chronic stress that research consistently links to serious illness, then the healthcare costs you might incur and the years of healthy retirement you might lose could easily outweigh the financial gains of one more year. If you have a pension that calculates based on years of service and you've already hit the cliff where an additional year adds nothing, then the benefit of staying is smaller. These are legitimate exceptions. The decision is always personal. But for the majority of people who are in relatively stable health and who have some flexibility in when they retire, the numbers are genuinely compelling. And I think most people underestimate them because they've never sat down and run through all three mechanisms at once: contributions plus growth, delayed drawdown, and Social Security timing, together in the same picture. Let me put them together for you now. Imagine someone named Carol. Not me, not you exactly, but someone close enough to feel familiar. Carol is 63. She has $480,000 in her 401k. She earns $68,000 a year and her employer matches 4% of her salary, which is $2,720 per year. Her Social Security benefit at her full retirement age of 67 would be $2,200 a month, or $26,400 a year. She's trying to decide whether to retire now or work one more year. If Carol retires now, she has $480,000. If she claims Social Security early, at 63, which she can't actually do yet, the earliest is 62, but let's say she waits until 62 and we're doing a hypothetical. But let's keep it simpler. She's 63, she retires, and she waits until 65 to claim, which gives her a benefit of about $2,048 per month, because she's still 2 years short of her full retirement age and she's taking a reduction. Her portfolio has to cover more years and starts drawing down. If Carol works one more year until 64, here's what changes. She adds her own contribution to her 401k, $23,000, plus the catch-up of $7,500, so $30,500. Her employer adds $2,720. That's $33,220 new money into her account. Meanwhile, her existing $480,000 is growing for one more year at 7%, which adds roughly $33,600. So her balance at 64 is approximately $546,000 instead of $480,000, a difference of $66,000 in starting balance from 1 year. And she's now 1 year closer to her full retirement age, which means when she does claim Social Security, her benefit will be higher because she's claiming from a later point, or alternatively, she can delay claiming by 1 more year from the same retirement date, which adds another 6 to 8% of annual increase to her lifetime monthly check. Over a 25-year retirement, that additional benefit compounds into a meaningful difference. We're talking potential additional lifetime income from Social Security alone in the range of $20,000 to $40,000 in present value terms, depending on her specific numbers. That's the picture when you hold all three mechanisms in the frame at once. Not a promise, not a guarantee, but a real structure that real money moves through. Now I want to talk about something that doesn't show up in any of these calculations, but that I think matters enormously, especially if you're in your mid to late 50s right now. Your final working years are often your highest earning years, which means they're also the years when you're most likely to have paid off your mortgage, have lower overall expenses, and have the most financial margin you've had in your adult life. Working 1 more year in this window is not the same as working 1 more year in your 30s when every dollar was spoken for before it arrived. The surplus you can actually bank in this season of life is often dramatically larger than what you were able to save in earlier decades. For a lot of people, the last few years of work are genuinely the years when the retirement account finally starts moving meaningfully. There's something almost counterintuitive about it. You spent years building slowly, and then suddenly the compounding and the contributions and the paid-off house and the lower expenses all converge, and the numbers start moving faster than they ever did before. That context matters when you're weighing 1 more year. There's also the healthcare piece, which I think people underestimate at their peril. Medicare eligibility begins at 65. If you leave employment before 65 and lose employer-sponsored health insurance, you're looking at bridging that gap somehow, through COBRA, which can be extremely expensive, or through the ACA marketplace, where premiums for a 63-year-old can easily run $1,200 to $1,800 a month, depending on your income and your state, before you factor in deductibles and out-of-pocket costs. For a lot of people, the cost of that healthcare bridge from early retirement to Medicare eligibility can absorb a significant portion of what they would have gained from retiring early, which means working until 65, when Medicare kicks in, is, for many people, a natural and financially defensible line. Every year you work before 65 is a year you maintain employer coverage. Every year you retire before 65 is a year you're paying for it yourself. That's not a reason to stay miserable, but it is a very real number in the calculation that I think often gets left out of the "should I retire early" conversation. I want to circle back now to the question the title asked, because I think you deserve a direct answer. What does 1 extra year of work actually buy you? Here's what I've come to believe. After running these numbers in my own life and thinking through the mechanics of this for a long time. In strictly financial terms, 1 year of work in your late 50s or early 60s typically produces a swing of somewhere between $50,000 and $120,000 in total retirement security. When you account for contributions, foregone drawdown, asset growth, Social Security delay, and healthcare bridging costs avoided. The range is wide because individual situations vary enormously. But almost no one's 1 year swing is trivial. In human terms, that might translate to the difference between a retirement where you're watching every purchase and a retirement where you feel genuinely free. It might translate to whether you can help your kids, or travel with your grandchildren, or simply replace the roof without lying awake afterward wondering if you made a mistake. Or it might be that the number is real, you can see it, and you still decide that your Tuesday afternoons are worth more than the extra security. That the year of your life has a price that the spreadsheet can't pay. That you've done the math and you're at peace with the trade. That is also a legitimate answer. What I hope this changed is the framing. Not, can I afford to leave? But do I understand exactly what I'm trading in both directions if I leave now versus 1 year from now? Because most of us were never taught to think about it this way. We were told to save as much as possible for as long as possible. But we were rarely given the tools to see what the marginal year actually moves, concretely, specifically, in our own situation. You have those tools now, and whether you use them to decide that one more year is worth it, or to decide that you've already given enough and it's time, either way, you're making that decision as someone who sees the full picture. That, to me, is what financial literacy actually looks like. Not the person who has the perfect portfolio, the person who can look at the real trade-offs and make a choice they can stand behind. I started this wondering about 1 year, and what I've come to is this. 1 year is rarely just 1 year. It's a lever. It's a multiplier. It touches your balance, your drawdown timeline, your social security, and in some cases, your healthcare costs all at once. Whether you pull that lever is entirely yours to decide, but I hope you're pulling it with your eyes open. If this kind of honest, number-grounded conversation about retirement is what you've been looking for, the kind that doesn't promise you'll be rich and doesn't make you feel behind, consider sticking around. Because this is the channel where we actually do the math together, and we're not done yet.